To the summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Ukraine and about the president of Ukraine, Zelensky. Yesterday he made lots of very interesting statements. Zero reaction from the world. Zelensky lashed out at the West after today's strikes on Ukraine. Putin is laughing at the West at its silence and the lack of any strong response. Russia has rejected every proposal to stop the war or even halt the strikes. It is openly trying to destroy our civilian infrastructure. Zero reaction from the world. Will fight to make sure the world does not remain silent. He made this statement right after the Russians carry out another massive missile and drone attack across Ukraine. We discussed this map yesterday. Lots of drones, more than 500 drones the Russians used yesterday, and dozens of missiles. Lots of objects of energy and gas transportation facilities were destroyed. So the situation for Ukraine is very difficult, and currently there is just one option for Ukraine and for the Western countries: how to reduce damage that the Russians are dealing with these massive strikes, and the only way is to begin bringing Russian missiles and drones in the western part of Ukraine with NATO aviation. And today we got report that Norway will deploy F-35 fighter jets to protect Polish airspace, according to the Polskie Radio 24. According to the publication, NATO command makes the final decisions on the use of weapons, and the presence of troops serves as a deterrent to potential provocations. So most likely in a month or in 2 months, and obviously during the winter period of time, the Western countries and NATO will begin bringing down Russian missiles, at least in the western part of Ukraine. Maybe they will try to do this in the central part as well, but then this is going to be very dangerous, and this can lead to unpredictable consequences in the relations between Russia and the NATO countries. Another important piece of news is that, according to Ukraine, 3 Chinese reconnaissance satellites were spotted over the Lvov region during the Russian strike, according to Ukraine resources. Whether the satellites actually conducted reconnaissance during their flights over Ukraine is unknown. Recently, Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service accused China of transmitting satellite data to Russia for the strikes. So, telling the truth, this is possible. This is really possible because, for example, the United States of America provides reconnaissance operation information to Ukraine. So the question is why China can't do the same. So everything in diplomacy always have a mirror, probably a signs. So if you do this, so most likely somebody will do the same. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the probably situation between the cities of Kharkiv and Belgorod. According to information we have, right after the Russians carry out massive missile and drone attack, the Ukrainians began bombing the city of Belgorod. Once again, the Ukrainians were attacking the city of Belgorod with HIMARS missiles, and these HIMARS missiles that you can see right now in front of your screens were launched from the city limits of the city of Kharkiv. Later, the Russians managed to discover or launching positions of the armored forces of Ukraine of those HIMARS missiles, and the Russians began bombing and attacking the city of Kharkiv with all types of weapons they have. But anyway, the Ukrainians managed to damage the Russian power plant, and as a result of this attack, following a missile strike on the launch substation in Belgorod, a blackout ensured again. So this is a very difficult situation for the Russians. They can't do anything with this because, once again, the Ukrainians attacked the city of Belgorod from the city limits of the city of Kharkiv, which means that there is no chances for Russians to protect their power plants. Anyway, this power plant will be destroyed by Ukrainians sooner or later. The only thing that the Russians can do is to create another power plant much further and deeper inside of the territory of the Russian Federation. I would like to remind you that during the day the Ukrainians were launching lots of drones in the direction of Belgorod just with one purpose: to empty the Russian air defense systems. And when Russian air defense system was exhausted, the Ukrainians struck the city of Belgorod with HIMARS missiles. As a result, as you can see, the blackout occurred in this area. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction where the Russians continue their offensive operation. During the previous 12 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded. For example, this is the situation by the end of the 5th of October, and this is the situation by the morning of the 6th of October. According to information we have, the Russians managed to get to the eastern outskirts of the Poltavka fortified area. Currently, there is no more distance between Russian positions and positions of the armored forces of Ukraine. Currently, the distance is already minimal, just less than 200 meters, which is already nothing, which means that currently there are already very heavy clashes for these farms and for these farms that are located on the eastern part of the settlements and fortified areas. Furthermore, this information was confirmed by neutral mappers and by pro-Ukraine resources. The same story is taking place in the Uspenovka fortified area. The same situation, the Russians managed to shorten the distance till the minimal level, and currently the distance between positions of Russians and Ukrainians is already less than 300 meters, which means that most likely today the Russians will try to answer these farms, to capture them, to secure the area, and to think how to move further deep inside of the Uspenovka fortified area itself. So I would like to remind you that these two battles are the most important battles in the Zaporozhye direction, because if Russians are able to capture the Poltavka and the Uspenovka fortified areas, most likely without any resistance, without any problems from the Ukrainian side, the armored force of the Russian Federation would be able to capture the city by the name of Gulay Polya, which hasn't been captured by Russians since the beginning of the special military operation. The city of Gulay Polya was and is one of the most powerful stronghold created by Ukrainians. The city of Gulay Polya and Orekhov, but now we see that the Russians have all chances to capture this stronghold, furthermore without any resistance from the Ukrainian side. The Ukrainians understand their situation, and that is why we start receiving more and more videos of how Ukrainians are trying to counterattack Russians to the north of the area of main battle. We start receiving lots of videos with Ukrainian vehicles that are moving to the line of combat contact, trying to attack or counterattack Russian positions, but the Russians managed to bring lots of FPV drones in this area and FPV drone operators, so that is why the Russians control the situation, and the Russians don't allow the Ukrainians to feel themselves very safe or very free. They attack them always, trying to pin them down and not so allow them to concentrate forces for further counterattacks. Now let's move further. Let's discuss the situation in the Pokrovsk direction. During the previous 12 hours, small changes were recorded. According to neutral mappers, the armored forces of Ukraine managed to restore control over the settlement by the name of Dorozhnya. Once again, this information was confirmed by neutral mappers. Furthermore, the armored forces of the Russian Federation managed to consolidate their positions around the village of Novoshakhova and Vilna. The Russians are trying to improve their positions and to move further with the purpose to outflank Ukrainians Novodonbass, Novoshakhova, Ivanovka, and to attack Ukrainians in Drobyshevo from behind. Furthermore, according to neutral mappers, the Russians restore control over the settlement by the name of Novotoretska, and now the Russians are trying to advance deep inside of the settlement by the name of Vladimirovka. Furthermore, the Russians continue their attempts to move further in the northeastern direction and the northwestern direction in the vicinity of the settlements by the name of Sofiivka and Novopavlovka. I would like to remind you that several days ago, several neutral mappers and pro-Western centers reported that this road was physically cut by Russians, and now we start receiving more and more updates that the Russians are trying to improve and to consolidate their positions. If Russians are able to establish a strong control over the territory, most likely the Shakhovo pocket, the defense of the entire Shakhovo pocket would collapse automatically, and the Ukrainians will start retreating from this area, probably as soon and as fast as possible. Now let's talk about the Kramatorsk, the city of Kramatorsk. During the previous 12 hours, we got a very interesting video published from the central part of the city. As you can see, this area is still highly populated. We see civilians, we see cars, we see that there are people, we see that it seems that there is a normal life in this area. And here we can see that the Russians launched their fiber optic drone in the central part of the city, and the Russians attacked Ukrainian vehicle. So this is a very important important video that confirms that the Russians have already established or tried to establish complete FPV drone control over the territory, because the main logistic of the armored force of Ukraine in this entire direction goes exactly through this area, and most likely in coming days we're going to see more and more videos of this type. As for the Seversk and Liman directions, the Russians continue their offensive operation. I would like to remind you that during the previous days, the Russians managed to capture the village of Fedorovka, the village by the name of Perezhny, and yesterday the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation reported that the settlement of Kuzminovka was also captured by Russia. Now it's clear that the Russians are trying to move further in the western direction and the northwestern direction with the purpose to capture the territory between the villages of Svyatopokrovsk and Zvanovka. If Russians can take under control this territory, this is going to be a total and complete collapse of the entire Seversk agglomeration. The situation in this region remains tense. The Russians have already established complete control over the main supply and logistic roads, trying not to allow the Ukrainians to bring fresh forces in this area and trying not to allow Ukrainians to escape this cauldron. Obviously, the battle of the city of Seversk is going to take place in 2025, and most likely we are going to face the first clashes in the coming days. And that's it for today. For the short video, Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.